Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That is the Hall of Famer, Cris Carter. This is Nick Wright. We have got a great, juicy Tuesday morning for you. Russell Westbrook got into it with a fan in Utah. Nick Foles cashed in with Jacksonville. Keyword there being cash. We're going to start with the Patriots because it's been a minute. The New England Patriots slowly coming down from their Super Bowl high. The reality of free agency has sunk in. Yesterday, they lost two key pieces from last year's championship team. Defensive end Trey Flowers is expected to sign with the Detroit Lions, where he will be reunited with former Patriots coach Matt Patricia. And left tackle Troy Brown will sign a deal with the Raiders. Let us dive into free agency. CC, we'll start with you. How confident are you that the Patriots will be, well, absolutely fine after losing these two pieces?
I mean, not concerned at all. The Patriots made these players. Trey Flowers, he's been in the Patriots system for a number of years, having his best season this year where they were able to, as a group, help him manufacture those 9 sacks and that have him coveted as a free agent because there's such always a premium put in free agency on quarterbacks and on guys that can rush the passer. From the other standpoint, as far as Trent Brown, he was a guy that had a lot of talent, but they wouldn't say he was an underachiever. In New England there, on the left side, we didn't know he was going to be able to replace Nate Solder and be able to do the great job that he did, but Dante Scarnecchia, we keep mentioning his name. He's one of the best coaches that people don't talk about. What he did with him there in New England allowed him most of the time to solo block. They didn't have a tight end over there where he helping. They didn't have a fullback or someone chipping. So I expected New England to allow these players to hit free agency. And in free agency, what do the bad football teams do? They continue that they'll stay on this cycle of being either mediocre or poor. That meaning they're going to always be looking for free agents. They throw money at guys. They overpay in free agency. So they've been like, wow, man, is Trey Flowers, is he worth it? One of my coaches in pro football taught me you're worth what someone will pay you. Now, most of the time people think they're worth more and they don't get it. But neither one of these players will be able to live up to these contracts. So this is what happens in free agency.
Especially the first 3 days of it. The first 72 hours, it's an auction. And anyone that's ever been to an auction knows if you win the auction, by definition, that means you said, I will pay an amount that everyone else in the room said, I can't pay that much for this. And that, listen, Trey Flowers, if you look at his knockdown numbers, because his sack numbers are not that impressive, but his knockdown numbers over the last 3 years, same as DeMarcus Lawrence, 4 more than Jadeveon Clowney, so you can see why he was sought after. People get the sticker shock of 5 years, 80 to 85 million. That's you better be DeMarcus Lawrence at least to make that a valuable deal. But why else is someone going to go sign with the Detroit Lions? Like, not just because he played with Matt Patricia. Trent Brown, we went through this exactly 1 year ago. Nate Solder, the former Tom Brady left tackle under Dante Scarnecchia with the New England Patriots, becomes the highest paid offensive lineman in the history of football. We now have a situation where Trent Brown becomes the highest paid left tackle in the history of football. The New England Patriots paid him $2 million last year. He's now going to get $36 million over the next 2 years guaranteed from the San Francisco 49ers. So from the Oakland Raiders, pardon me. This is the situation that these teams are in. It is very hard to get bargains in early days of free agency. You just have to accept we're paying a 25% premium at a minimum. The Pats, on the other hand, see, they drafted Isaiah Wynn a year ago. Now, we don't know what he'll be, but they spent a first-round pick on him.
Yeah, they got 2 high draft picks. The defensive back from Florida, he ended up getting hurt. They got 2 of their top 3 picks coming back after not making contributions, so they'll develop those guys the way that New England typically would do.
And on Trey Flowers, it's not a draft pick. I think Michael Bennett will be as productive next year in New England, if not more, than Trey Flowers will be in Detroit. Michael Bennett, I think, has at least 1 more year of very high-level football left in him.
Yeah, look at his knockdowns. They're very comparable to what they gave up there with Trey. I believe he's a better player, and I believe he's very, very smart, very, very savvy, and watch how he fits into that New England system. So I know New England got a very good player at the right price.
Well, and that's where, and I don't ever begrudge any player making money. I would so much rather the players have the money than the owners. Like, I got no problem with it. But in a hard cap sport, the money matters. And Michael Bennett on a 1-year contract for less than $10 million is such a greater value proposition than Trey Flowers with $50 million guaranteed at 16 to 17 million per.
And I think they have Bennett for the next 2 years under 20 million.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. But they're not tied to him after the first year. So if they want to move on from him,
yes,
it's essentially a team
or
option
you can keep
him
because I believe he's going to have success.
I know we talk about this a lot. But how are the Patriots so much better than almost every other team at evaluating talent, knowing when to cut a player, when to bring in a guy that other teams have given up on it? Because they seem to just know the X's and O's of the business of football better.
Well, I have to correct you. They do know football better than anyone else. They don't know talent better. Like they don't, because they don't have a very, very talented roster. Now, what they do is they believe in their system. They believe in their coaches, will coach their guys up, and then allow them to be able to play the best football. Detroit, because they have Matt Patricia, he's very, very fortunate. But other players, we have seen, Chandler Jones being one of the most talented, we have seen these players leave New England, and you start to see you're a system player. This is what free agency, it distorts fans, it distorts coaches, it distorts who that player really is. Because all players have weaknesses. But in free agency, because of the sticker price, and just like, well, wow, this guy's making that. Well, the salary cap for one is $188.2 million. So we shouldn't be like, oh, man, these owners are broke, all right? The market will bear these type of prices. That's why the owners are paying these type of prices. So we should expect, I think the salary cap went up $10 million over last year. It will continue to grow. New England, they understand the ramifications. They have the type of deal, though, when you have your quarterback and he's not eating up $30 million of the cap, they have such a huge advantage. Now, they have some other advantages, but how they manage Tom Brady and his salary is one of the things they do at a level, and that's the reason why they're the New England Patriots.
The thing that the Patriots, I think, do better than every other team, Jenna, is not talent evaluation, but understanding the business aspect of football and they understand the draft is a crapshoot. So you know what the best chance of winning that crapshoot is? Getting as many picks as possible. They understand that free agency, you tend to overpay. So they sit back. They never sign guys to contracts that could become bad contracts. In the last 3 years, there's only one what I would consider risky contract they've signed a free agent to, Stephon Gilmore. That if he ended up being a bad player or being repeatedly injured.
And it's almost like the chance they took when they went Revis, because they knew that a cover guy, and what I can do as far as coverage, I'm willing to risk more money at that position than I typically would, but it gives me so much flexibility from a game plan standpoint.
And there's no other way to get that guy. So if you want to go get that guy, you're going to have to pay a premium. But the Patriots are so disciplined in not falling in love with what recency bias, what we saw last year, in believing in their system that they will not overpay. And then they have the added benefit, because they're the Patriots, guys might, at the end of their careers, take a little bit less to play there.
Sure.
Guys might want to choose to go there.
Right, and what they do, Jenna, from a talent standpoint, they know your players maybe better than you know them.
Oh, so that's interesting.
And when you got Revis, where'd he come from? Well, people say he came from Tampa Bay.
But
He came from the Jets.
Yeah.
And where did Gilmore come from?
The Bills.
From the Bills. So guys inside their
Welker
division.
was in the the Dolphins.
I mean, guys in their division, they do that extra to be able to see how would this guy fit into New England. And there's a couple guys they've decided to pay, and those things have really worked out.
Look, there aren't many teams where you could say, oh, you lost your starting left tackle and defense end. You're going to be just fine. It's got to just be the Patriots. Talk more about this coming up, but on the other side, who's to blame for the Lakers' lost season? That's next on FS1. You can always check us out on the Fox Sports channel on SiriusXM. We'll be right back.
This Saturday night, don't miss the biggest pay-per-view fight of the year. Two of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world put their perfect records on the line. Errol Spence Jr. takes on Mikey Garcia for the World Welterweight Championship live from AT&T Stadium. Spence Jr. versus Garcia, Saturday, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific, live on pay-per-view. Order now.
Season that was supposed to be, LeBron and good shooters around him, has really just been LeBron and other humans. Most of the free agents which Magic Johnson signed this offseason haven't really gelled with LeBron. According to reports, Magic ignored the requests of Lakers coaches to retain Brook Lopez and Julius Randle, both of which now thriving on other teams. Instead, he added Michael Beasley, Lance Stevenson, and JaVale McGee. Nick, You think Magic is in a little over his head?
I don't overreact.
Is this your pump the brakes?
I just don't. Listen, the plan always was a 2-summer plan, so let's see how this summer goes. Obviously, after they signed LeBron, the moves they made last summer were bad moves, were the wrong moves. Now, I defended them then, and I will defend them now. They could not re-sign Julius Randle. He wanted a multi-year deal. He wanted a player option. He got that from New Orleans. And if they would have given that to him, you're going to say, oh, well, he's going to opt out. Maybe. But if he were to suffer an injury, you would be, if you give anyone a multi-year deal, then you are out of the free agent game. So the Julius Randle thing, that is revisionist history. And in my opinion, these are some coaches that know they're probably getting fired, because the whole staff's going to probably get fired.
Nick, before you continue on with the story, did you know about this before this became public?
I mean, yes.
Because you're the first person that ever told me about this. I know that right now there's a report out, but there were people in the NBA and NBA circles that knew of this story. Were they just holding it until...
Well, I think that... Here's what I think. I think that Luke Walton and his staff have played good soldier, and to their credit. I also think that they know that people can play the leak game in the media or in front offices as well as anybody. And when Luke Walton could be fired midseason, leaking out information that it would make you look good in a moment but would not sit well in the front offices, that might be a quicker way to get fired midseason, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But now it's a wrap. We know that Luke's going to finish the season. We know he's going to get fired. And so I understand why you would say, hey, but wait a minute. Wait a minute. I wanted to keep these guys. Now, the Julius Randle stuff, they shouldn't have kept him. It was the right move, even though he's been excellent. The Brook Lopez is a different story. Brook Lopez, yeah, he's become a better three-point shooter this year, but he shot 5.5 threes a game 3 years ago. 2 years ago it was 4.5. This year it's 6.5. He was 35% or better every year. We saw LeBron with Channing Frye excel. And
yes.
Brook Lopez was $3.5 million. You gave JaVale $2.5 million. So that is one that you could look back and say, why didn't you keep Brook Lopez? Milwaukee got him for 1 year, $3.5 million. If you could match that and keep him. So that's a fair criticism. But this is, I think you're going to hear a lot more things like this, more. But here's how I would have done things, because when things go poorly and people are going to lose their jobs, even if you can't save your job, you want the next employer to know, well, it wasn't on me. In fact, I knew better than this.
There's a lot of finger pointing, and a lot of different names are going to pop up of who really should be to blame for what's happened to the Lakers. So all the attention now points to this offseason with this organization. How much, CC, of what happens in this offseason is going to determine whether or not LeBron James was a success with the Lakers?
Well, it's all building steps. Like, we can't forget when LeBron signed, he was like, let's be patient. All right? Like, and Nick, you've pointed this out through the year, they couldn't overreact, because then that would have taken them out of the max market where they couldn't add another max player. And that was one of the things at the trade deadline. They didn't end up signing a bad deal. Now, they didn't make any trades that end up helping the team the way that they needed it, but they didn't take themselves from getting someone like Kawhi, Kyrie Irving, or the other guys, Kemba, the guys that will be available this summer. So we know that there would be, let's be patient. But, man, we can't be patient no more than that.
No.
Like, LeBron's there for 4 years, but Magic's not. And Magic got there before LeBron. So him and Rob Pelinka, and they should have pressure on him. I mean, Rob Pelinka, he's a basketball agent, taking over the Los Angeles Lakers with Magic Johnson. And I know people would like to appropriate, man, what you did on the field, on the court, but in the front office. But we've had more people fail at that than we've had be successful. So there should be a tremendous amount of scrutiny on people doing that. John Lynch, what he's trying to do in San Francisco, tremendous amount of pressure on him. These jobs are very, very difficult, but this is the year for Magic. Like, I don't believe will he be there in year 3? If it doesn't work out next year as far as getting a big-time free agent and they're not one of the top 4 seeds in the Western Conference, what has he done to bring basketball? Now, he said, if I don't get this done, I'll fire myself. Well, okay, be careful what you say.
There's 2 ways, tried and true, to build a basketball team in the modern NBA. One is luck out in the draft, get the superstar, and build around him brilliantly. That's what Milwaukee's trying to do right now, by the way. Milwaukee got Giannis, developed Giannis, and they knew they weren't going to be a major free agent destination. We got to trade for Eric Bledsoe and then sell him on it and get him to extend. We have to develop. We have to get Malcolm Brogdon in here when he's undervalued elsewhere, and wins Rookie of the Year and turns into a real player. We have to find value from Tony Snell when other teams don't. Like, that's one path. The other path, and that path involves, you got to have really, really smart, analytical people that are in the weeds, that are saying, hey, guess what, Brook Lopez, the Lakers aren't using him right. He can shoot even more threes. He can unlock our spacing of our offense. The other path is just star hunt, right? I'm going to go get this star, I'm going to get this star, and the rest will figure itself out. That's been the Lakers' path. When you hire an agent and a legend as your front office people, none of them are the guys saying, well, actually, this guy's box score plus minus is not. No, it is, we will use the power of our city, of our name, and our reputation to bring in superstars. This summer, they landed the superstar of all superstars. Will that follow?
But he did drive to the front lawn.
Well,
all they had to do was open the door and
they just had to say, okay.
That's the other aspect of it. It's totally correct, is that how much does LeBron go to the Lakers if no matter who the GM is, right? Is that if Mitch Kupchak's still the GM, does he go to the Lakers? Probably.
Yes.
But we don't hold that against you. But can you get another guy that will determine whether or not they can compete for a championship?
And last week, Cris Broussard sat here and said, yes, Magic was in front of LeBron's house, but why wasn't Rob Pelinka in OKC where they end up convincing Paul George, or they end up throwing a party that night for the team, him and Russ, to be able to celebrate? Why weren't they working together in that? Because do they have that pool? We know L.A. has the pool. We know the Lakers have the pool. But does Rob Pelinka and Magic Johnson and their relationships throughout the league have pool to bring players there?
Nick, what's the big sell right now for a free agent coming up this offseason? Is it still going to be playing with LeBron? Is it the organization? I mean, is it L.A., the city?
I think it's the totality of all of it. Like LeBron said, LeBron's always been LeBron, right? And he said it was harder to get guys to come to Cleveland than to Miami. And so L.A. is better than both spots if you don't care about the state tax aspect of it. It's the organization that the Lakers, prior to 5 years ago, had missed the playoffs 5 times in the history of the organization since they were the Minneapolis Lakers. Now they're going to miss the playoffs 6 years in a row. It's the city. It is the ability to compete for championships, and it's LeBron. It's all of the above. Can that, though, trump what they're trying to put together in the same city with the Clippers? And I saw last night Kyrie Irving spent more time talking glowingly about Doc Rivers than I've heard him talk about anyone recently. Like the Clippers and their legend at GM or general team president, whatever his title is, Jerry West, has a track record of knowing how to do this, a track record of success in building basketball teams. So it's not going to be easy. But I still believe the Lakers are going to get somebody, a wingman for LeBron this summer. We're not quite sure who it is at the moment.
All right, speaking of quarterbacks who might have been overpaid yesterday, coming up, did the Jaguars do just that for Nick Foles? That's next on First Things First. Time for stories to start your morning. Fisticuffs in the Raptors-Cavs game. Serge Ibaka and Marquise Cris exchanged blows. Nick, what was your reaction to this?
Man, I want to know what Marquise Cris said and why he was acting crazy, because there's a lot of people you might want problems with in the NBA. See, you say all the time, NBA's got a lot of fake tough guys. Serge Ibaka is not one of them. He's got a track record of throwing hands in this league. He almost knocked Marquise Chris's head off right there. He's going to get like 5 games. But this was a real NBA fight. I'm going to put you in a chokehold, and then I'm going to swing on you.
Yeah, he definitely said something to him, because Serge got up off the ground meaning business. So don't like to see guys fighting. Not a good example, like him, but every once in a while, it just gets a little hot.
A little hot, man. Serge was ready to throw.
All right. Big news this morning. The Jets will reportedly sign 4-time Pro Bowl linebacker C.J. Mosley to a 5-year, $85 million deal with $51 million of those dollars guaranteed. See, you like this for the Jets?
Yeah, man, I had to pause there, too. I was like, whoo. Man, the Jets, I was wondering how they're going to spend that money. But they got one of the best free agents out there. I love C.J. Mosley since he played at Alabama and ran those defenses, led them to national championships, led one of the best defenses and one of the most complex defenses in the Baltimore Ravens the last several years. Great locker room guy, great leader, can blitz the quarterback on third down, can cover running backs out of the backfield. Jets fans, you should be happy what you're getting.
And 6 hours ago, before we knew they'd gotten C.J. Mosley, you thought the Jets had made one of the best deals of free agency already with Anthony Barr, right?
Yes, because the versatility, especially playing a 34 defense, he can play all four of those linebacker spots. Yeah, he's a phenomenal athlete.
So now you've got a legit pass rusher, outside linebacker in Anthony Barr, maybe the best inside linebacker in football, or certainly one of the best. That's how the Jets are trying to build it. Yeah, you got to pay a premium, but the Ravens wanted to keep him. They just couldn't match the dollars. This is a free agency move where you're paying at the top of the market, but you're getting a player at the top of his position. So I don't mind it at all. I like this move by the Jets.
All right, finally, Nick Foles is a backup no longer, officially getting his own team and his own big payday. Foles will quarterback the Jacksonville Jaguars next season. He'll reportedly sign a 4-year, $88 million deal with up to $50 million guaranteed. Wasn't a huge bidding war for Foles, but Jacksonville certainly paid him like there was, and that means the end of the Blake Bortles era in Jacksonville. CC, what'd you make of this deal?
Yeah, I don't believe you have to have a bidding war in the NFL. You've seen other guys, not top-flight quarterbacks, be able to get $20 million. Case Keenum, I'm sure that Nick Foles has a better resume than him. He was able to get money. Forget Mike Glennon. He was able to get a bunch of money. Sam Bradford, when he wasn't hurt, he was able to ink a couple deals making $20 million. So, no, I'm not surprised at all. They got a guy that won a Super Bowl. He has proven that he is a starter. He took Philly to the playoffs again this year. If they get one other catch from Alshon in that game, we don't know what they're going to do in that game with the Saints there. So Nick has proven himself, and he's also got someone in the building in DeFilippo, who's their offensive coordinator, who was in Philadelphia when they won the Super Bowl. So that right there, given Tom Coughlin his interest in the NFC East, understanding Nick Foles, having that intel, no, I think it's a great fit for Nick Foles, and I believe it's a good price to be able to get a quarterback like Nick Foles at.
You obviously had to move on from Blake Bortles. The team, if you think the defense is still good enough to compete at championship levels, you couldn't have that anchor around your neck any longer. And just it seemed like the defense midway through the season, I don't want to say they quit, but they lost some almost motivation because of how bad the offense had been. So I get that part of it. Where you're in a tough spot is because you just this time last year committed to Blake Bortles. Moving on from him, over the next 2 years, it's $16 million a year cap space for him not to be there. Nick Foles going to be $22 million on average per year. So we're talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars for Foles and Bortles. That's $30 million of cap space each of the next 2 years. That's top of the market quarterback money. So you did upgrade at quarterback. I think I do believe in this instance they did overpay at least slightly because I don't know that there was another team in the league that was going to offer him $15 million because we've got 12 quarterbacks drafted in the last 4 years in the first round that the teams believe in. The older quarterbacks are not retiring except for Peyton Manning. So you just don't have a situation where a lot of teams think, we need a quarterback, even though obviously a lot of teams need a quarterback. Can you compete if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars at the highest level when you have a, relatively speaking, expensive quarterback room when you incorporate Bortles' dead money and you're not going to be getting great quarterback play? That's the question. And the other aspect is for Nick Foles is, to me, his biggest asset is we know in big spots the moment won't be too big for him.
Right.
He's
only played in big spots,
well,
seemingly.
in the last couple of years. Right. Are the Jaguars going to be in one of those big spots? Like we were talking about this before the show, about whether or not they can compete in the AFC South. If you get to the playoffs, if you're competing for the playoffs, then knowing that the playoffs aren't going to be too big for Nick Foles makes him more valuable than your typical.
Well, the spot Nick Foles was in last year was not a big spot from a positive standpoint. He had to play great football to get them in the playoff hunt. Like, they were struggling. They were on the board to be able to miss the playoffs. So it's not just the playoff games. His play got them into the playoffs. So to say a player, oh, man, a guy plays well in big games and everything, to think that he can't put that together during the regular season, that's why you got him signed. And he was their best option. You can't have Blake Bortles as your quarterback anymore and send any type of positive vibe to your locker room or to your fan base.
And also, he's reunited with John DeFilippo, who he played with and was his quarterback coach in Philly, so maybe that sort of eases the transition process for him. All right, let's move on to Le'Veon Bell, former Steeler, future, well, who knows, eager to get back on the field, though, that we do know. He is eager that after sitting out this past season after refusing to sign his franchise tender, according to reports, the Jets are the clear favorite to sign Lev Bell. Bell isn't sure where he's headed, though, tweeting this out yesterday: "I'm so torn right now. Decisions." See the Jets the best fit for Le'Veon Bell?
I don't know about the best fit. I think the best fit's Indianapolis. I believe because of quarterback, given that Luck is back at a level that we are shocked that he's back at, their offensive line, the salary cap dollars they have available, I think he's a better fit in that offense in what they're trying to do than with the Jets. He'd be a good fit with the Jets, but the best fit for me would be play with Andrew Luck.
I think Andrew Luck and the Colts, there are two best options to me pretty obviously. They're both in the AFC South. The Houston Texans, which we talked about yesterday, and the Indianapolis Colts. They both have a ton of money. They both have a quarterback that you 100% believe in, and they both have struggled in the entire era of the head coach for the Texans and in Luck's really entire career to have a consistent rushing attack. The Colts in the last 5 years have not ranked higher than 20th in the NFL in rushing. The Texans have gone somewhere between 8th to 15th. And that's with getting the last couple years rushing yards or last year from their quarterback. They drafted Alfred Blue. It didn't work out. They signed Lamar Miller. That hasn't worked out. Now, I understand for the Texans, people are going to say, you need to spend more money on the offensive line. You need to go. Man, I looked at the offensive linemen that were signing yesterday. There are not enough offensive linemen to go around in the league right now. If you want to upgrade your offensive line, you're going to have to do that through the draft. So I think Le'Veon has made it clear he's going to go where the money is, and I do not begrudge him that at all. This is going to be, I would imagine, his last real contract in the NFL, if not his last contract whatsoever. I think the Colts and the Texans would be foolish to not discuss heavily should we make the best offer for Le'Veon Bell. Both those teams, I think, feel like they can compete for a championship next season, and on the offensive side of the ball, their running game has been the weakest part of their game. Texans probably pass protection, but I don't know how they're going to upgrade it where we're seeing what Trent Brown's getting. We're seeing what the other offensive tackles have already gotten on the market.
Is there any concern whatsoever that he did sit out a year, that maybe he does have that, couple strikes against him with the drug policy, that there are a few sort of negative marks on him? Could that possibly
Well, all players
be a
have
reason?
negative marks as far as what they can do. That's the reality. They have a foul on him. That's what it's going to say in the foul. He's had a positive drug test. He's in the drug program, and that's a part of it. I don't think sitting out is going to help him or hurt him.
Okay.
He should have played football last year, in my book. That $14 million, that's money he will never get. I don't care what this contract is. This contract would have been available because look at the dollars. Salary cap, $188 million. It wasn't going to change. Even if he had a little injury, he still was going to get paid. So for me, he'll never be able to get that year back of compensation, and he's going to get, I think, $17 million a year in free agency. If he goes to the highest bidder, he'll get $17 million. Does he decide to come down a little bit to put himself in the best situation between $15 to $16.5 million? That, to me, if I was with a quarterback like Luck, something like that, that's something that I would consider because the longevity. Can I get all this money?
Yeah, I think the contract he's looking at is going to be about 4 years, $65 million, with probably around $35 million guaranteed. The first 2 years guaranteed plus a little extra is, I think, what he's looking for and I think what he can expect. Now, on the Jets side of things, with this report saying they're the favorite, we know what the model is in the modern NFL when you have a young quarterback that you believe in. Spin now. Take advantage of the fact that Darnold is underpaid if he's a real player. Surround him with talent. We've seen the Jets sign 2 wide receivers. We just talked about how the Jets signed Anthony Barr and C.J. Mosley to try to buttress the defense. They do need playmakers on that offensive side of the ball. They need difference makers. They need guys that aren't just, okay, he can have a big game, but guys you rely on. That's why the Jets, I think, will target Le'Veon Bell, even though they've spent a bunch of money already. It makes sense because they have the big bargain on their quarterback. The Texans are in that exact same spot with a bargain on the quarterback. I would also argue, if you're a running back, tell me if you disagree, you'd rather play in the AFC South than the AFC East. You'd rather play 8 games in a dome as you would in Indy or Houston, plus the 3 road games in your division in good weather and good circumstances than the AFC East playing in New York and playing in that division. Maybe you think for the running back that's not as big of a concern as a wide receiver or a quarterback. When he has receiving as a big part of his game, and
I think the team and the franchise and your ability to try to win at a high level outweighs, am I going to be in the South or am I going to be in the AFC East? Being in the East, you know New England's in the East. So you know, man, what are my chances of winning the Super Bowl? How far are the Jets away? Those are the things he'd have to calculate.
And there will not be a more fresh quarterback as far as his legs go than Le'Veon Bell coming in this year since he took the year off. All right, we'll take a break. Coming up, will the Super Bowl champion Patriots, speaking of which, take a step back after yesterday? Next on First Things First. Welcome back to the show. Former All-Pro running back Ryan Westbrook joins us.
Good to see you.
Like my brothers, they just go and go, and it's awesome.
How many
Brian,
brothers do you have, Jim?
I have one younger brother.
Oh, okay.
Well,
And let me tell you, they are nothing like either one of you, but I love you guys as if you were my brothers.
Thanks,
All right, let's
Jenna.
talk Odell Beckham Jr., Brian.
Me and you the only brothers she was. Tell me 2 brothers.
That's right.
Al Roker. That's 1. You can't count them as 2.
Brian, focus. Despite his star power, Odell we're talking about, and his talent and his seemingly perfect personality fit here in New York, Odell Beckham Jr. is reportedly still on the trade block. GM Dave Gettleman addressed this earlier this season, saying, "We didn't sign Odell to trade him, and yet the rumors are aplenty that he may be gone next season." Does this surprise you in any way, Brian?
You know, when you talk about putting special players around quarterbacks, Odell is one of the special guys that you want to put around him. But it comes down to this, and I think Pat Sherman, I know Pat pretty well with my time with him in Philadelphia. He wants good fits. He wants guys that want to buy into the program. He wants to buy into what we're doing as far as a team. And it just seems that Odell probably hasn't bought in to the team aspect of what Pat Sherman is trying to present. The other part of that is he's one of the assets that you can go get a lot of pieces with. Your first-round pick, a second-round pick, some players. He's probably one of those only assets that you have on that Giants team that you can go get players with because he's such a special player. And they want to build around the running back. They want to build around Saquon Barkley.
Well, and I think they know that Odell has had something of a wandering eye. Odell, I don't think it's breaking news to say that Odell has entertained the idea of what would it be like playing in Los Angeles? What would it be like playing with Tom Brady? What would it be like playing somewhere else? Not to say Odell has at any point demanded a trade. Odell signed that contract happily. Odell hasn't said, I don't want to be in New York. So he hasn't asked for a divorce, but he sure seems to be flirting with other people quite a bit. And that might make a team say, we won't actively try to trade you.
But we're not going to hang up on you if you call.
Right. We will let it be known that, through sources that if you call us and knock us over, now, are they in a situation like Pittsburgh where they would trade Odell for 30 cents on the dollar? I believe absolutely unequivocally not. I think it would have to be what the Cowboys got for Amari Cooper, I'm sure the Raiders got for Amari Cooper, and then some. I think it would have to be more than just a first-round pick, given what it would do to their salary cap with all the signing bonus hitting them immediately, and the fact that they clearly want to compete for one more year with Eli Manning, and Odell's their only reliable, true wide receiver. Ingram's fine as a tight end, Saquon's great as a running back. But I don't think we should, even though Gettleman's been adamant, I didn't sign him to an extension to trade him, I don't think we should dismiss this report or dismiss the idea that he could be traded before the season. And if he is, some of it will be his own doing in my mind.
Wait, let me ask you guys this, and you have to think this. Gettleman's always throwing this out there. We may trade him, Maybe this is a way for him to say, Odell, you need to start acting right and do things the way that we want to do it. Do the way that Pat Shermer, because we will trade you. And if you want to be here, you need to do it the right way. You need to do it our way. And that wondering eye, that's something that's important for coaches. You want buy-in. I want you to buy into our program. I want you to be here in the offseason. I want you to help our team get better. I want you to be a leader on our football team. I think they're trying to get all those things from Odell Beckham Jr. And the question is, can he give you that?
Well, I disagree with both of you. I'd be shocked if they trade him. I believe it would be an idiotic move for them to be able to trade him. His contract is just now starting, the new one, and based on what's going to happen this offseason. Watch what happens to Michael Thomas in New Orleans. He's going to get a new deal. He's on his rookie deal. As a second-round pick, he's due a new deal after this. Julio Jones held out last year. Arthur Blank told me to my face, I'm going to take care of Julio. So Julio Jones sitting there at $11 million. Seeing Antonio, what he got at Oakland, something's going to happen. A.J. Green, he's in the last year, all right, at over 30. But, yes, A.J. Green is a commodity. Nicest guy you ever want to meet. So look for A.J. Green to get a bump up.
Tyreek Hill.
And Tyreek Hill is going to be the highest paid of them all. So the landscape of the NFL and the salaries, when you look at where Odell's going to be,
he's going to be a bargain all of a sudden.
It's going to. So why would I let him go? He is a once every generation type of player. And regardless of what you guys say, there's nothing that he has done that I'm going to let him out of this locker room, because you have to replace that productivity. And, man, those draft picks don't turn into Odell Beckham. He's one of the top 3, top 4 wide receivers in the league right now. And he hadn't even hit his potential. Like, he's going to get a lot better than he is right now. Now, there is a thing with these wide receivers, like AB, one, everyone's not Julio Jones. Everyone's not Larry Fitzgerald. So you might still have some maintenance with some of these other guys that Julio Jones, people don't say anything, but he had a silent protest last year. Okay? I ain't coming to the building until something is done. So is that more drastic than what Odell has seen? So for me, the Giants, I'll be shocked if they trade him, and the Giants are not doing themselves a favor by allowing these things to be out there. They should get ahead of it. Gettleman should always just say, no, he's not to be traded. He should be more emphatic than he has been. Every press conference, he should start it with Odell Beckham is not on the trade market. Now, that's not going to prevent you from getting your phone rang.
Making an offer.
All right, now, someone gives you 3 number ones or something crazy like that, I can understand that. But right now, they are not doing themselves a favor by allowing this conversation to continue, because if you know a guy's got a wandering eye,
then nip it in the bud is your point. Right.
The big question still has to be, can you win with this type of receiver? Julio, Larry Fitzgerald, AB, Odell.
That to me is a more honest conversation.
Well, teams still haven't won with those guys on their roster.
Absolutely.
So maybe Gettleman, maybe Shermer are saying.
What do you mean by those guys?
He means we haven't seen a Super Bowl champion with one of these superstar wide receivers in a very long time. Now, I would argue that we kind of did with the Falcons. Julio made the catch that should have won that damn Super Bowl, and they were in position, kick a field goal, and the game's over. Like, I don't buy into the idea that, well, because the last 11 Super Bowl champs haven't had one of the 3 best wide receivers in football, therefore that means you don't need them. In fact, they prevent you from winning. I think having great players helps you win championships. What, Steve?
Yeah, well, that's amazing, because you're into the numbers, and now the numbers don't tell your story, so now you don't believe in the numbers.
No. So I
believe great wide receivers are overrated. As far as putting the salary cap together and trying to win football games. Me and my guy Dusty, I'm sure you'll love this. Right now in the NFL, if you look at what's the best personnel, how you want to attack people, it's not with 3 wide receivers on the field. It's either a fullback and 2 tight ends, or 2 tight ends and 1 running back. Right now, if you want to attack offenses, because they spend all their time trying to stop nickel defenses. So I could have an argument, if I'm running an offense, yes, Cris Carter, Hall of Fame wide receiver, would you much rather be in with 3 wide receivers on the field, or a fullback potentially and another tight end? I'm going to go the conventional route, because I believe it's easier to defend 3 wide receivers right now than the other aspects.
The idea there is when the whole league is zigging, you zag, right? When the whole league has gone to nickel defense, when the whole league has gone to small people and speed defensively, if we can now go the other way.
That's what New England did to the Rams in the Super Bowl.
It's exactly what New England did. And so the idea that trying to always be counterintuitive when the league has overcorrected in one direction, I think there is something to that. But when you say, I like the numbers, but the numbers don't tell my story. So last year, there was a narrative, which is, look at all the highest paid quarterbacks, and all those teams missed the playoffs. Maybe spending a lot of money on quarterback kills you. That, to me, was...
Well, Tom Brady's not one, so he's not going to be on the list.
Right. Aaron Rodgers got hurt.
Exactly. We had a few teams that didn't make the playoff. It was an odd year. You don't have 11 years with the other numbers.
Right, but it was not Julio's fault the Falcons didn't win that Super Bowl. And if they do, then that streak is broken, right? It was not Randy's fault.
Well, it's not a streak. It would have been like the numbers still say you shouldn't have a high-paced... They would have one win.
Okay, so I do not believe, and you cannot convince me, convince me that there is any correlation between an inability to win a championship and having a star receiver, because we have seen so many teams with these star receivers come this close.
No, that's not the conversation. The conversation is, if I'm going to attack people from a salary cap standpoint, will I be better off utilized spreading that money around to the other positions, having a couple running backs, having 2 or 3 tight ends, having a fullback? I think that's what our conversation is.
Teams have been much more successful spreading the ball around, getting the ball to a lot of different people. To your point, 2 tight ends, 1 running back, it's much easier, and you'll complete much more passes first, second down, getting the ball shorter
and
passes.
The numbers say that.
To tight ends, to running backs out of the backfield, instead of trying to get the deep threat with the wide receiver. That's what the big play receivers are all about.
And the point you're making about you have to look at the value proposition given salary, I am all in on that. I totally agree with you. But that doubles back to the beginning of the conversation. Odell's about to be a bargain. At $18 million per. Like, he was top of the market. That was brief. AB passed him. You mentioned 3 or 4 other guys that are going to pass him. So if you have...
I wouldn't call it a bargain. I would call it a good price.
Okay.
You're not overpaying for it. Now, if he was making 10, 11 million...
Okay, sure.
The AJ Green?
I'll tell you this. If I'm Saquon Barkley, I want Odell Beckham Jr. on my team.
100%.
You find a way to make that work somehow.
But do you all agree that Odell's most likely going to be a Giant to start?
I think they would have to. I think someone would have to offer the Giants a first-round pick and something else legitimate, like a first and a second. And then I think they have to have a very real conversation about it. I don't know that offer is going to be made, but I don't think they're hanging up the phone.
Right.
Like, there are certain teams that are hanging up the phone if you call about a player.
Right.
The Giants, I think, are hanging up the phone if you call about Saquon. I don't think they're hanging up the phone.
Giants, I got a message for you. You trade Odell. Don't draft my man Haskins. Don't bring him up here to New York, man. Don't do us no favors, man.
Brian, stick around. Take a break. Coming up, can DeSean Jackson revive his career in Philly? Next on First Things First. Back here with Brian Westbrook. Busy day for your former team, Brian, in the Philadelphia Eagles. Yesterday, according to reports, they agreed to trade, bringing DeSean Jackson back to Philly. Last year in Tampa, Jackson thrived with Ryan Fitzpatrick. He struggled connecting with Jameis Winston, though. He is a big new weapon for Carson Wentz, who is now officially the guy with Nick Foles heading to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Brian, what do you think of the Eagles' offense after this deal?
Well, when you look back to last year, you're talking about an offense that had no deep threat. They went out and got Mike Wallace. He got injured. They need those big-time plays down the field. They need those plus 20 plays. When you bring in a guy like DeSean Jackson, you get a speedster, one of the best ball trackers over the last 10 years of the NFL. He's a guy that can get those home run plays, what this offense certainly needs. If you're an offensive coordinator, this is what you get. Anytime DeSean Jackson's on the field, you get the safety to take a step or 2 back, which every quarterback, every offensive coordinator wants, trying to adjust the defenses. You make them take a step outside, a little bit wider to DeSean Jackson's side. That means Zach Ertz. That's the step or 2 that he's going to need to get a little bit more open. That means Alshon Jeffrey doesn't have to worry about the double team anymore. And that means if you're a running back, whatever running back they find in the draft, now you don't have to worry about those 7, 8-man boxes. It's going to make it easier for their entire team. Now all they need to do is find a way to get Carson Wentz, the healthy Carson Wentz, the 2017 Carson Wentz, to be playing at that level. If they can do that, this play for DeSean Jackson, it takes his team offensively to a different level.
I know DeSean's going into year 12, but he does not appear to be slowing down. Like, literally, he still seems to be as fast as he was when you played with him during tail end of your career when he first got to Philly. He had a really down year in 2017. His first year in Tampa, he never got on the same page with Jameis. And we even saw last year he had struggled getting on the same page with Jameis, thrived with Fitzpatrick. But aside from 2017, he's 18 yards per catch every single year. 4 of his 11 years in the league, he's led the NFL in that category, yards per catch. He is a huge play receiver. He's, to me, a better version of what Mike Wallace was going to be for them. And when we talk, about building your receiving core like a basketball team, I know it sounds cliche at this point, but Alshon's one position, Zach Ertz is one position because he's part of that receiving core.
They can play the 3 and the 4 and get you buckets. Fill up the stat sheet.
And DeSean Jackson is your shooting guard, I guess you would call it, your big play guy, your speedster, and the way he can tilt the defense, because you cannot not have a safety over the top of him unless you're playing some type of cover 3 where you have a deep zone. Like, you've got to account for his speed when you have a quarterback in Carson Wentz who you know has a strong enough arm to get him there. I think he is one of the players in this league that can change games without having a bunch of catches because what he opens up for other people. I love this move for Philadelphia. This is one of my favorite moves of the young offseason.
When we talked last year about why it wasn't quite gelling so well with Alshon Jeffrey out there is because Alshon was working so well with Nick Foles. He didn't have as good of chemistry, a good connection with Carson Wentz. How much does this help Carson Wentz to have a guy in there that from the get-go he could start working now in the offseason and getting on the same page with?
Yeah, well, you have to realize, too, last year, Alshon and Carson both coming back from injuries. Both of them missed a lot of time. Alshon had a bad shoulder. So he missed all the offseason training camp. A lot of training camp didn't start the season. So Carson Wentz, he also came back with that knee. This will help them out. And DeSean he's like the consummate point guard who's going to make sure that you get the ball, you get the ball, you get the ball. I don't need a whole bunch of shots because my shot's going to be down the field. He's not a guy that you have to target 8 to 10 times a game. So he's the type of guy you want to add to when you have someone like Alshon, when you have someone like Zach Ertz as a tight end, who those guys would be your primary wide receivers. But, Nick, you mentioned D-Jax having the 18 yards a catch. Last year during the season, the only wide receiver that averaged 18 yards. Since he's been in the NFL, no one in NFL history has caught more passes for more than 60 yards than DeSean Jackson. His ability to turn the game around on one play, what about a punt return? So now I get some special teams value. And, man, they love him in Philadelphia. He brings an extra little bit to that team. They got a unique fan base. I think that they will embrace him coming back to the city of Philadelphia. So just what Howie and them tried to do last year, they know what their weaknesses were in their offense. Let's add Mike Wallace. Well, Mike got hurt. DeSean Jackson is the better version and more homegrown coming back to Philadelphia, and you get that special teams edge. I like the move. I
love the fact you mentioned the special teams. You don't know what you're going to do with Darren Sproles quite yet. I think they find a way to bring him back. D-Jax is special back there. He's won a couple games already. Well, this is one thing that you have to love about speedsters. Everybody respects their speed. Everybody wants to go deep. And then on 3rd and 7, you think he's going deep? He runs a quick out route. He gets the first down, 8 yards right there. That's the type of guy DeSean Jackson is. Very good route runner.
And that's the thing with Mike Wallace. He's a better, more complete wide receiver than Mike Wallace was. Both of them add that speed, but D-Jax has more versatility. Also, shallow crosses. You blitz, throw it to him hot. He terrorizes the defense because the game just starts once he gets the ball in his hands. So it should be exciting for Carson Wentz. I'm going to tell you who was upset yesterday. And that was Dallas Cowboys.
New York Giants.
New York Giants and the Washington Redskins because they got to face him twice a year.
And I know we're going to talk more about the NFC East as a whole, but one note on this. The Eagles in 2017 were elite by league standards in 2 specific things in the passing game. 3rd down, they were amazing on 3rd down, particularly on 3rd and long, and deep passes traveling more than 20 yards through the air. Well, the big reason they regressed last year was they went more to league average on 3rd down, and they were well below league average on those deep passes. Part of that's Wentz's injury. Part of that is the injury to the wide receiving corps. But that is what DeSean Jackson is arguably as good as anybody in the league in, is tracking those deep passes and then run after catch on them. This is the type of move, especially when you see what the Eagles gave up and where his salary is, all that. I don't know how anyone could quibble with this. This makes the Eagles better. It is a position of need. It's a guy who's comfortable in the city. This is a great move by the Philadelphia Eagles.
Last year, the Eagles suffered what we call the Super Bowl hangover. How much better did this team just get from this move? Are we back on track to thinking they could be that team from 2 years ago?
Well, I think it was a couple of things that made them better. They're getting healthier. Jason Peters coming back, left tackle to protect your quarterback. You're getting a much healthier Carson Wentz. Then you start to add weapons, pieces on the outside, and you have a whole offseason of quarterback and wide receiver. You understand how it is, CC. When the quarterbacks and wide receivers get together in the offseason, production usually goes up a little bit more. You get a healthy guy doing that all season long, and a guy in DeSean Jackson. He's not focused on the money. He's not focused on the rap career. He's focused on winning football games. That's why he came back to Philadelphia, a city that he certainly missed when he left out of Philly. I think this is a great move for him.
You mentioned the NFC East earlier. Washington signed safety Landon Collins yesterday. It was a 6-year, $84 million deal. How does that change the balance of power now in that division?
So much money. I mean, every year that I'm out of the game, I say, wow, these guys are getting paid. I never thought that I would see a safety get this type of money. I think he got $45 million guaranteed.
A box safety at that.
A bunch of money. But you talk about a box safety. That's important to bring up. Guess who you have in that division? Who are you trying to stop? Ezekiel Elliott, Saquon Barkley. That's why you bring in a guy like Landon Collins and say, listen,
because
stop these guys. Stop the run.
His strength is playing up close to the line of scrimmage, tackling at the line of scrimmage, tackling in the backfield. And when you are losing and you're trying, and you don't have $30 million you spend at your quarterback, you can take some chances like this. I don't like the fact, I love the fact that Landon got paid because I'm all for guys getting paid. But what about Josh Norman? He left Carolina for the same type of deal. He's in the last little phase of that deal, but they're in the same secondary. Do you spend that type of money on your secondary? And a lot of my questions in the NFL go like this. I ask them, would Bill Belichick do this? Be like,
no chance.
H no. So that's a lot of money to have in two players in your secondary.
One thing we know about Washington, they love Alabama players. They now have 6 of their projected 11 starters are Alabama Crimson Tide defensive players. Now, you can say that's a good thing or a bad thing. I know some people think that Nick Saban kind of squeezes the football out of you with those practices, with the way they do things in Alabama, but they've got over half their starting lineup on defense are Alabama guys. I'm higher on Washington's potential than I think most people are. They were devastated by injuries last year on the offensive line, lost their running back before the season even started, and then their quarterback went down. They still won 7 games. I think the Eagles are clearly the class of the division going into the season.
And then who? Cowboys? Maybe Giants?
I would project that it would go Philly, Dallas, Washington, Giants. But if you were to tell me one of the teams that goes from out of the playoffs to into the playoffs, goes from 7 wins to 10 wins next year is Washington, I wouldn't be shocked by it. They haven't bottomed out despite having what I would consider bad luck or injury-wise the last couple of years. If they stay healthy and if Case can be average, I think Washington can be what up, Case?
Case?
If he can be average. If he can just be average. If he can be what he was.
Well, that means you need a running game. Darius Geis has to come back and be completely healthy. They need some outside. The biggest thing they're trying to get from Landon Collins, you want to stop the run, you get a leader in that defensive side of the ball. Landon Collins is a team player. He's a leader. Big pickup for them.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.